The Sean Payton watch is absolute madness with Dan Quinn and Frank Reich now out of the race.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. I was waiting to do the podcast until we found something out. We haven't found out jack yet. All we know are two names have been taken off the board for potential fits for the Arizona Cardinals vacant head coaching position. And now I'm just looking at Twitter, waiting for my mind to be blown one way or another with Sean Payton chilling with Michael Bidwill and new GM Monti Ossenfort all day. Give me some news, man. I want to know what the hell's going on. Tell me what's going on. Today's episode, I'm going to talk about the positives that I talked about yesterday, more in depth about Sean Payton, because there are three of them. And they are massive for the future of the Arizona Cardinals if they do, in fact, choose to hire him. I still think to this moment, to this second, that DeMeco Ryans is the right choice. I still think he's the right choice. But now with Frank Reich taking the job in Carolina, now with Dan Quinn taking the job in Dallas, Dan Quinn was a favorite to take this job. Brian Flores is still here, but it seems like from multiple reports that the Arizona Cardinals are the only team that's looking at Brian Flores to fill their vacant head coaching position. Sean Payton being here all day, as these dominoes start to fall, it's almost serendipitous. Like, is this mess really going to happen on a Thursday afternoon? Is Sean Payton really not going to go interview anywhere else if he has some set up or not? Is Michael Bidwill going to pay him a whole boatload of cheese to be the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals to, usher in a brand new regime and be the leader of Arizona Cardinals 2.0 that I've talked so much about and in such depth? I have no idea. It's Looney Tunes to think that Sean Payton really could be the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. It's Looney Tunes. Because there are so many things stacked against the Arizona Cardinals in their journey, in their plight to land them. One, they have to give up multiple first-round picks. Mickey Loomis, GM of the New Orleans Saints, said that that's the package. Somebody needs to drug test Mickey Loomis. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think it's possible. I talked to Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints multiple times about this, for what the capital should be for trading for Sean Payton. And we both agreed separately and came together. We're like, that's what I said. A second this year and a first next year. And I feel like the 2023 second-round pick for the Arizona Cardinals, being the third pick in the second round, is a first-round pick light. It's so close. And if the Cardinals do give their first-round pick, number 3 overall, to New Orleans for Sean Payton, Michael Bidwill will have been further back than where he was at the end of the 2021 season when all this Travis Shem mockery really started. If the Cardinals give up number 3 overall, I've threatened to boycott this team multiple times over the last 5 years. It's difficult sometimes, but that is going to be one of the most unconscionable mistakes that an owner could make. Giving up a transcendent talent for maybe the next 10 years with whoever they draft at number 3, whether it be Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, for a coach, and then pay the coach $20 to $25 million. That's one thing that cannot happen. That cannot be on the bingo card for the Arizona Cardinals. Absolutely not. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than the Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 25 times your cheese on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's 100% instant deposit match. Promo code Locked On for your first deposit. So we don't know anything more than Sean Payton's chilling. Okay? He's chilling. He's in Arizona. He likes golf. And that's the thing. So before I get into the 3 positives that I talked about ad nauseum yesterday, but not as in-depth as I want to for the final 2 segments, this is the one thing that Michael Bidwill's BS meter needs to be up higher than it's ever been. one of the stigmas of the Arizona Cardinals are veterans that want to get one last paycheck, that come to play for the Cardinals for the weather, for Scottsdale, to buy a nice house on the cheap compared to other portions of the country, not so much anymore, and get that last paycheck before they ride off into the proverbial sunset of their career. That's one thing that has marred the Cardinals over the last 20 years. Because Arizona, regardless of what you think about the summer, has sexy weather 8 months out of the year. And would you rather go play for the Jets in East Rutherford or go to Arizona for one last paycheck? If the team, is kind of out of the playoff, out of the playoff periphery, would you rather get paid in the sunlight or in the snow? So the Arizona Cardinals have dealt with that a lot. They dealt with it a lot. Now, that's the BS meter that Michael Bidwill has to have up. Is Sean Payton taking this job, if he were to, for the money, the golf, and the lifestyle any more than anybody would when taking the Arizona Cardinals job? Because Sean Payton, he's been out a year. He's itching to coach, but he doesn't have to. He's making some money, commentating, doing the analysis thing. If it's all about the 20 to 25 mil a year and all about as much power as a head coach could have while a GM is employed by that current organization, and his short game, that's something that Michael Bidwill needs to sniff out today. And that's not something that all organizations have to talk about. So like with the Rams, there are no frills. Sean Payton went to go coach there. Like, living in LA is fine. But when it comes to this, when there's an arms race to get Sean Payton, and the tipping point that tips the scale in the favor of the Arizona Cardinals is the weather, is the money, is the control, that is a red flag that the Cardinals need to alleviate their future from. Regardless of the history of Sean Payton, regardless of what he brings to elevate this team and this organization for the future. Regardless of all of that, if they don't see that as one of the main cogs of why he'd come here, hire him. If it is, we're going to have an issue. Now, that's not questioning Sean Payton's work ethic. It's not questioning his ability to lead a team. But what it does is, it's kind of me being gun shy about this, looking at what players have done to come here at points at the end of their career to get paid, and kind of infusing it into this conversation, which is on a much grander scale with a lot more money. Michael Bidwill needs to get this right. Nothing to this point is as important as getting this right. If it's Sean Payton and he wants to pay him 20, 25 mil, cool, not my money. If it's not about just the money, if that's just an entry fee to get him to come speak, as it were, to be a keynote speaker for the next 5 years for the Arizona Cardinals and lead them into the future, cool, if that's the going rate. But if they're trying to squeeze out money from a team because he'd like another big paycheck, and he'll coach and, he'll do what he does, but it's not going to be 95% of it, or 5% of the bonus of living in Arizona, living around Scottsdale, and coaching this organization in the sunlight. If that's more important to Sean Payton than what it should be, that's a red flag, in my humblest of opinions. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. But it's something that Michael Bidwill needs to be able to see today, as they're spending more time together. Like, every moment that goes by, just like, is this really going to happen? So we don't know right now. I'm live here, following on Twitter. I just, this is to the moment, and I'd much rather do this live than, wait and then do it after, because this is the fun stuff. There are 3 things that Sean Payton brings to an organization that would 100% heighten the floor for the Arizona Cardinals, maybe higher than it's ever been. And it's really going to put into perspective what the Arizona Cardinals as an organization, Phoenix Cardinals, Chicago Cardinals, have been as an organization, and where they could go with the strengths that Sean Payton brings to the organization if he were to be hired. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Yeah, all that next. So here's the thing. The NFL playoffs are here. Like, this may be the best day of football in a long time on Sunday. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today, get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. All on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So again, football fans, don't miss out. Place your $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Thanks for hanging out. The fact that Dan Quinn went back to Dallas as of 20 minutes ago. What? Did he not want a head coach? Like, I don't know. Does he? Well, I mean, there's one thing. Like, if they think Mike McCarthy is going to get fired and Jerry's like, hey, bro, you want to be the next head coach of the Cowboys? I could see that. I could see him wanting to go back. Being the DC in waiting, the head coach in waiting. And that's something, it's a Jack Del Rio special. So that's fascinating. And that was from Josina Anderson. She came out and said that Dan Quinn's going back to Dallas. Wow. Frank Reich earlier today, Carolina. So it just takes a couple names off the list. Sean Payton does three things for an organization. He did it for one, but I mean, he would do this for the Arizona Cardinals. One, he brings the respect. Okay? He brings that's a Sean Payton coach team. And even though Sean Payton may not be a top 3 coach of all time, top 5 coach of all time, what Sean Payton brings is respect. Not just for him, but for the organization in which he coaches. And that's something that the Cardinals have lacked. No fault of Cliff, no fault of Steve Wilkes, no fault of Bruce Arians, no fault of, Ken Wisenhunt. Like, Sean Payton's different. Sean Payton, if he were to sign on that dotted line, would be the best head coach the Arizona Cardinals organization has ever had. And we could talk about, in the last 40 years. Let's say that. He's won a Super Bowl. He's had some tough calls. He had Minneapolis Miracle go against them. But what he did was take a bad franchise in the New Orleans Saints and made him relevant for a long time, and made him good, and made him great, and made one of the best offenses the NFL has ever seen for a large portion of time in the 2000s. That's what he did in the 2010s. That's what he did. So that's one thing that the Arizona Cardinals desperately need, is to get respect back around the league. They've lost it. It is not here anymore. After 7-0, 10-2, downfall. Playoff game. Off-season. Training camp. Regular season. Kyler Murray injury. Firing Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim before their contract extensions kicked in. That's what the plight has been for the Arizona Cardinals since the midway point of 2021. Not good. When they say all news is good news? All publicity is good publicity? Not since the middle of 2021 for the Cardinals. And it's been relentless. It hasn't let up. And now, with the tabula rasa clean slate of the future that I've talked about with the Arizona Cardinals 2.0, Michael Bidwill checked the box of hiring an outside GM in Monti Ossenfort with deep, deep scouting roots. Won multiple Super Bowls with the New England Patriots as being part of the staff. Now, the respect is needed in the Valley. And Sean Payton would immediately bring notoriety and respect to this team. And it would heighten the floor. And that's something that the Arizona Cardinals desperately need. Number 2, equally as important. He's done it with an undersized quarterback before. This is the one that everybody's talked about. He took Drew Brees, who was let go in San Diego for Phillip Rivers. Miami chose Dante Culpepper over Drew Brees. And with a guy who's 6 feet, maybe, with a shoulder problem in San Diego, he takes that guy after Hurricane Katrina and builds a city up like very few coaches ever have. Not only in the community, the team, they became good like that. So, the direct parallel, even though Kyler Murray and Drew Brees are not even close to the same quarterback, they're both not 6'5". So I guess there's a comparison there. He's done it before. Bad organization, not a 6'5" quarterback, built a powerhouse. Hey, Sean, do it again. That's what the Arizona Cardinals would be doing, asking him if they hired him. Hey, Shawnee boy, do it again. We need you, Michael Bidwill would say. I'm not a we guy talking about the Cardinals. I'm not part of the organization. That's the second massive thing that Sean Payton would be able to bring. History. He's already done it. The Saints, again, were one of the most losingest. They've lost more games than a lot of teams in the NFL. Proper grammar notwithstanding. And if he were to do it in Arizona, another, cellar dweller as opposed, regarding wins and loss, like win-loss percentage, even though they've been around longer than most teams that who play professional football in the NFL. He's already done it. Sean, do it again. And that brings so much power because that's the only reason why, like, he said multiple things about, how we like Kyler Murray coming out of the draft. He's talked glowingly about Kyler Murray. Okay, so that's, sure, you have your angle there. Most head coaches, offensive-minded head coaches would look at Kyler Murray and be like, I could do a lot better than what Cliff Kingsbury was doing with him. I agree. But that's not even one of the three. That's an ancillary piece. It's tangential to the storyline. What Sean Payton could do is have the opportunity to do what he did in New Orleans again. And the wide receivers he had in New Orleans, I feel like the Cardinals offense could stack up a little bit higher than that. Devery Henderson, Robert Meacham, Marcus Colson was an all-timer. But it was the offense. Do you remember drafting Drew Brees in fantasy football and then having to draft one of his wide receivers to stack on your roster? Every week, it was a different wide receiver. It was the most frustrating thing ever. You know what that's called? A good offense when real football is involved. And that's what Sean Payton built in New Orleans. Hey, Sean, do it again. Number 2. So, and the third one here, I'm going to take a whole segment on it because it's really important. I tweeted about it. I talked about it for a long time yesterday also. But it's something that needs to be discussed again because it opens up Pandora's box to the opportunity for the Arizona Cardinals roster for the next decade. And that's something that Sean Payton can springboard into action for the first time ever. I mean, I feel like ever is a long time, but ever for the Cardinals organization. I'm going to talk about it next. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Just search Locked On Cardinals. Leave a review if you want on, wherever you get your podcast. It's cool. I had some Baltimore Ravens fans get pissed off at me because I talked mess about Lamar Jackson 3 years ago. Just shattered my ratings. So if you want to hook a brother up, do it. Locked On Cardinals. The one thing that I see as the apple of my eye when looking at Sean Payton, I will discuss next. First, Prize Picks. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy, man. You pick 2 to 6 players. If they'll score more or less than the Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You don't compete against other players. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball when it comes back, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports. Can I stop now? It's every sport seemingly on the planet. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, Prize Picks will give you 100. If you deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you 50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to 100 buckaroos. I mean, I'm a kid at a candy store. Like, when it comes down to it, at this point, I talked about this a little bit yesterday as well. Whoever the Cardinals choose is not going to be a bad choice. And that's something that fans, players, media members can take solace in. If they hire Brian Flores, cool, solid, raises the floor from where the Cardinals are now. If they hire D'Amico Ryans, I would be Bugs Bunny on the moon. If they hire D'Amico Ryans, I still think it should be D'Amico Ryans, but with how much time Sean Payton has spent with the organization today, with Dan Quinn going back to Dallas, with Frank Reich, even though he was an outside chance, he was never really a favorite to become the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, going to Carolina, it just puts more of the spotlight on Sean and his damn visor. We got to work on him with that visor. Like, I don't know. We had the fedora, whatever it was, with Bruce Arians. We can't have a hat guy. We had a shade guy with Cliff. I don't need these accents. Just coach football. Number one, Sean Payton brings respect. He brings status. That's something that no Arizona Cardinals coach coming from the outside in the last 40 years has had. Huge plus. Number two, he's done it before with a bad organization perennially with a quarterback that isn't 6'5". Comparing Kyler Murray and Drew Brees 1-to-1 is dumb because Drew Brees is never running quarterback. He's one of the better pocket passers we've ever seen regardless of height. And what he learned was to step up in the pocket, something that Kyler Murray hasn't really been able to achieve just yet. And then number three, I call it free agency passive income. I tweeted about this. I talked about it yesterday. I'm doing it again, not of laziness, but because I want to just brand this into your brain. The Arizona Cardinals have never been a free agent destination. Ever. Well, what about J.J. Watt? J.J. Watt is one of one, okay? He didn't come for a paycheck. He got a paycheck, but he also played great football when he was healthy for 2 years, okay? He wanted to play. He wanted to be with his wife, like, have a kid. Cool. Come play for the Arizona Cardinals. Absolutely. They've never been a free agent destination. You know who could bring that? A head coach with clout, a head coach with a history, a head coach with respect, a head coach who has taken a bad organization and made them great. Free agent passive income is something that winning organizations take for granted. They utilize it. They don't realize teams that don't have it, it's a huge Grand Canyon size between one side of the spectrum and the other. And if Sean Payton becomes the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, that free agent passive income is here immediately. In a nanosecond, the Arizona Cardinals organization in the future will change immediately. And that is so powerful. Do you know what perennially losing organizations have to do to get that clout, to get that passive income? They have to become a winning organization. And the Cardinals were so close. They were on the precipice of turning the corner, the pivot, as I've called it, for 5 years, waiting for something to happen. They were 10-2. They were atop the NFC. They had a multiple game lead in the NFC West, and they excremented the bed multiple times over in so many different ways. And at the end of 2021, especially with their performance against the Rams in the playoffs, they were further back than they were before the 2021 season started, which was a wild and crazy roller coaster. Like, hey, we were 7-0 and 10-2, guys. What happened after that? Wait, so we're going to lose? We're going to be further behind in the marathon than if we didn't go 10-2 to begin with? Michael Bidwill says to himself. Yeah. They were further away from snagging free agents than they were before they were 7-0 and 10-2. It was a fascinating thing to experience. And now they need like jet fuel injection to get that cloud again, or to get that cloud, period. Because if the Cardinals build an ecosystem with Sean Payton or otherwise, where it's a winning organization, they win more than they lose. If they go 9-8 every year, it's a far cry from what we saw this year, regardless of injuries. If they can build that and they win, you win a playoff game, guess what? Veterans would come play here for a little bit less money than go get their, make their $30 million with a bad organization. And that's how you build out rosters, with veteran talent that aren't commanding draft picks to get them, and then a contract extension once you land them. 3 things before I move to, because I see a lot in the chat, I'm gonna get to it in a second, about the capital that's going to take to acquire Sean Payton as the head coach. 3 things that Sean Payton brings that nobody else that's available right now does, even D'Amico Ryans. 1, clout, history. Clout, respect, floor elevated massively for the Arizona Cardinals, especially coming off that dumpster fire of a year last year. 1. 2, history. He's done it before with an undersized quarterback, perennially losing organization, and he took him to prominence and had one of the most potent and scary offenses in the history of the NFL, at least over the last 30 years. 2. Number 3, free agency passive income will become a thing for the Arizona Cardinals, starting now, starting when he signs, starting when the reports come out that he's the Arizona Cardinals head coach, if it does happen. And that is so invaluable for a team that needs it. That's so invaluable for a team that needs it. So those 3 things are the things that the Arizona Cardinals can look forward to if they do, in fact, hire Sean Payton. Now, before I get out of here, the draft capital that it's going to take to acquire. There's a couple different ways this can go. 1, if Michael Bidwill gives up the 3rd overall pick to Mickey Loomis and the New Orleans Saints for Sean Payton, I'm done. That should be something that's not even in the atmosphere. That's not even a definable entity in the atmosphere, okay? If it is, it would just be, what's worse than par for the course? Bogey for the course? Snowman for the course? So even Michael Bidwill, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay. So what do you do then? Because the Saints want a 1st-round pick this year. Okay. And the Cardinals are the perfect team to actually do this. You give them a 2nd this year, which is the 3rd pick in the 2nd round, which is a 1st-round pick light. And you give them a 1st next year, which is going to be much less valuable, because you'd expect the Cardinals to take a step forward, even though Kyler Murray is going to miss some time. You think that they'd be in the teens. If they can make a run and make the playoffs, who knows what this roster is going to look like. So you give them a 2nd this year, a 1st next year. Okay? If it must be a 1st, that brings DeAndre Hopkins into the mix. New England loves him. They have the 14th pick, I think. Bill Belichick would 100% trade the 14th pick for DeAndre Hopkins, in my opinion. Okay? If you trade him to a contender like Kansas City, they have a 1st-round pick. They'd be happy to give up for DeAndre Hopkins. So the Cardinals could shimmy in to the 1st-round pick fold, just not with number 3 overall. But the thing is, and the snag is, that when DeAndre Hopkins want to be with Kyler Murray and Sean Payton, like, I know that they're going to have to extend them. These are things that the Cardinals are going to have to deal with that Steve Keim just left for people to deal with. Like, Steve Keim in his job, and we hope he gets better, health-related things, all of those things. This is not a mention of that. But it's like, what the Cardinals are right now is like, so you go over to, like, I have a friend that comes over to my house, okay? When I was younger, we play with toys, and then the friend gets picked up and they don't help me clean it up. That's kind of where we are with the Cardinals. Is the person who's responsible for this mess isn't part of the organization anymore. So there's going to be a lot of consolations that are going to have to take place for the Cardinals to build a functional roster for the future. So you may have to pay DeAndre Hopkins if you want. If you're not going to get more than a 3rd-round pick for him, who cares? Keep him. Figure out the cap space. Every other team does it. And you group him with Hollywood Brown and giddy up, partner. But if it needs to be a 1st this year, DeAndre Hopkins may be collateral damage, which would pain me. I still think when he's healthy and Kyler Murray's healthy, of him and Hollywood Brown, keep him. What the hell are we doing here? It's DeAndre Hopkins. People just forget how great he is, how elite he is. I can guarantee he'll be a Pro Bowler if he goes somewhere else. My biggest fear going into 2022, and I had no idea what was at stake, or what we were going to witness, was DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown not playing meaningful snaps together. DeAndre Hopkins out the first 6 weeks for suspension. As he comes back, Hollywood Brown gets hurt. They high five in the hallway, and then it's like, well, the Cardinals have to hang on. They don't, and they didn't play any meaningful snaps. So people didn't see what the product could look like, and this is where we are. Because I can all but guarantee that if DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, if Hollywood Brown didn't get hurt and they played from week 7 on together, we'd be speaking a very different tune about DeAndre Hopkins. People forget how elite he is still. But if the Cardinals want Sean Payton, and it's got to be a first this year, it's a deal breaker, you got to field offers for DeAndre Hopkins. Because I guarantee, at least it should be a guarantee, that contending teams would give up a late first-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins to be the last piece of their offense. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. We'll keep it on the pulse. I mean, with my luck this week, with doing podcasts and then things breaking right after, I'm probably going to have to hop right back on because Sean Payton is going to be hired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach 10 minutes from now. But barring any sort of, I'll be doing another live podcast tomorrow around this time. Join me. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I will talk to you tomorrow.